All right. Welcome back to the True Footy Podcast 35. A quick turnaround one from last week, which was like less than a week ago. So I think that's the quickest turnaround we've ever had between podcasts.
Everyone knows we love to pump them out during finals. All two finals, we've really been up and running with the channel.
We do love to pump them out, also the podcasts. But today, you might have noticed we are down to one camera, which is the first time I think we've gone, or maybe it's the second time we've gone with the one
potty,
camera.
Because I know we've done it for videos, but potties...
I did it with Lewis with a single camera.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounded very sexual.
Sounded like Paris Hilton's debut in film.
Yeah, we did. We ran with a single camera setup. Yeah, this is like the third time ever. So the reason for that is, as you remember in the last podcast, we had no second camera on Bush, but now Bush has been promoted again into the shot. And running with the one camera today due to technical difficulties, which is something we seem to encounter a lot on this channel.
Corrupted SD card.
Yeah.
Unfortunate. Means my camera can't really consume footage.
Exactly, yeah. One of the many viruses that you have. And the other technical difficulty we had was earlier today, the power went out at your house. It seems to be back on for now. But tonight we're hoping to do the Geelong Collingwood live stream, which we haven't announced yet.
Hopefully we should be okay. They've been blocking off the road all day doing work on the power pole, so it's back on. Hopefully they fixed it.
Yet another euphemism. Yeah, true. So it should be good to go. But today, what we're going to do is, I know we've just started the finals. We probably should have done this last week and then the finals preview this week. But what we're going to do is go through the 10 teams that missed the finals, because they shouldn't be forgotten, and go through, where they sit, how their season was, and what they should do from here. So I was thinking reverse order of the ladder.
I guess so, but technically we're also catering to the majority of the AFL audience because we're covering 10 teams instead of 8.
True. Although one of them is Gold Coast.
That's true. All 3 of their supporters will be thrilled to see this.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's right. So I do like sort of analysing a team's season after the fact, and it's particularly around the offseason, talking about like list management moves. I find that really interesting. It's probably my favourite part of footy.
I'm definitely the same, especially because basketball's really big for all the player movement and transactions and all that sort of stuff, and I love all that sort of shit.
True, yeah, for sure. I'll kick us off with Gold Coast Suns, and then we've kind of divvied up the teams unevenly here, so you might go with a couple of teams in a row, but for now, we'll start off with the Gold Coast Suns, and to start off, I will sum up their season in a sentence. It started promisingly, but ultimately it ended the way many expected it to. So, obviously, some people talked about them as being one of the worst teams of all time on paper. Whether or not that was correct, I still don't know. They did win 3 games, but they won 3 games in their first month and nearly pinched a 4th to go 4-0, and then lost a ridiculous 18 games in a row, which is pretty rare. They did have some positives this year, for
Definitely,
sure.
I'd say they overachieved almost.
Overachieved, yeah.
In a weird way, they overachieved.
You were one that said it might be. I remember you saying in pre-season you thought Gold Coast were one of the worst teams you'd ever seen in terms of on paper.
Yeah, it definitely looked that way.
When you think about it, they lost both their co-captains. They lost Aaron Hall and who there was a 4th player there?
Lions?
Yes, Lions, who's turned out to be an important player.
Almost recruit of the year. Some people have him right in that race.
Exactly, which is almost a video on its own, that one, actually, who's the recruit of the year. But they're probably the 2 biggest contenders of both Brisbane Lions players, so it shows how well they did last year. But anyway, talent has developed at Gold Coast, or at least they've got it in, and I think that came in the form of Ben King and Jack Lukosius, 2 key position talents that I'm really big on, and I think that is a big plus for them going forward. Obviously, the issue for them is, can they retain their young players? I'm hoping they can, but it obviously remains to be seen. Jared Witts is the other big positive for me.
Yeah, he had a really good year. I drafted him in our draft leg as my ruckman, and he wasn't quite a Gorn Grundy type, but he was right.
Yeah, he's not far off.
Not far off, that's for sure.
In fantasy anyway. But he obviously had the most hit-outs this year as well. But also, I think a really rare recruiting win for Gold Coast, because obviously they traded him from Collingwood. So the fact that they're trading in players who are contributing, that's always a positive. Anthony Miles was all right. Decent pickup, as was Jack Homsch. So, they've had a couple of examples where they've picked up sort of underappreciated players at other clubs.
That can't crack necessarily their team, but have something to offer.
Exactly. Obviously, I think they did pretty well in mitigating huge losses this year as well, because we expected maybe a few 100-point buildings, but maybe...
They never really got killed.
No, I think there was one or two games. I remember one against Adelaide where they got annihilated, and towards the end of the year, there was a couple of big losses, but for the most part, they did pretty well in that regard.
What was their percentage like, can you recall?
Oh, look at you questioning me for statistics on the spot. God bless the AFL app.
Yeah, it's so handy. That's why I figured I wouldn't be stitching you up too badly. It's just a flick away.
True. Yeah, it remains to be seen what their ladder is. I mean, the fact they only won 3 games, it means it hurts. 60.5, that is pretty putrid, actually.
I thought it'd be better, to be honest. That's why I asked. I thought it could have been a point of optimism, but...
That's true. Yeah.
Turns out it wasn't.
They've also exposed the next layer of midfielders in Tuke Miller, Braden Fiorini, Jack Bowes, and Ainsworth. Obviously, they're not guns yet, but they're fairly good contributors. The negatives, Isaac Rankine, I don't think he debuted, or if he did play, I don't think he played at all. I know he played in the preseason, but yeah, obviously, no games in him is a bit of a blow. They copped it bad with injuries. They couldn't run out the season. Nobody really expected them to. Lost 18 in a row, and unfortunately, they're going to lose 2 more WA players this year, unfortunately, in Jack Martin and Callum Archie, most likely. Both of those players will probably
Archie was struggling for a game, though, wasn't he?
Yes, he was a first-round draft pick, though. Yeah. So it's just overall a bit of a blow. I think he might have had injuries. I could be wrong about that.
And you don't think WA Dockers could look at him as a viable sort of...
As far as
both of them actually could be viable targets for my boys.
Very true. But what I've read, which just means nothing, Jack Martin's linked to Carlton, and Callum Archie has been linked to the Brisbane Lions, interestingly. So a bit of trading between the Queensland clubs. So their off-season strategy is they've got picks 1 and 17. That could potentially become picks 1 and 2. Now this year, obviously they might get a priority pick. Picks 1 and 2 are considered head and shoulders above the rest.
Yeah, it's a 2-person draft, isn't
supposedly, it? Supposedly, yeah. Exactly. So their off-season strategy will be, if they keep 1 and 2, they need to use them, in my opinion. I don't think anyone's going to come knocking down the door to play for Gold Coast to warrant them trading pick 1.
Yeah.
I'd say keep those picks, extract value in the deal that they can for Archie and Martin, but I feel like they need to keep going down the path of adding mature depth around their young talent. So more guys like Anthony Miles, not necessarily another midfielder just like him, but on that level.
Yeah. Even the Hawthorn Smith they got from...
Yeah, I don't think he had a good year, though. Yeah. I think he battled injury and form.
There was someone else they got that was decent, though, like in that sort of category of player. He's just the first one that came to mind.
There was a bunch, actually, I think.
Yeah, there was one that went all right.
Yeah. Their targets this year I've listed, and I know we've gone way over time on Gold Coast already, but Sean Burgoyne's been linked to the club in a leadership role, both on and off the field. Armitage, I believe, doesn't have a club yet, but I think he wants to play on from St Kilda. Brendan Archie, that one's an iffy one if Callum leaves, but if they can get Brendan Archie from West Coast, I think he fits that mould. Alex Keith is another one out of contract for the Crows. So these are just
that'd be a good pickup for him.
Yeah, so these are just some like depth players that aren't going to cost them the world, who are looking for a new opportunity. They could probably offer a little bit of an inflated contract, and I think that's the way forward for Gold Coast to develop these new talents. So I'm going to give them a C- for this year. They've developed. They haven't gone as bad as we thought, but at the end of the day, still finished last. Yeah. And for 2020, I project probably they're going to finish last. That's my 2020 prediction. So why don't you take us forward with Melbourne, Busher?
Well, I've got one word here. It might be a little harsh, but in truth, they've really had a truly terrible season, especially compared to pre-season expectations where people were talking them up for the flag. People had them as the favourite for the flag, and they've come second last.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll probably even go with the word dog shit.
Oh, yeah, no,
dog shit year for them. But they'd say it themselves. They would have held themselves to a higher standard coming in based on their previous year, and they simply haven't lived up to it.
I don't think any Melbourne supporter would fight you on that.
Yeah,
I think they would agree with that assessment.
Yeah.
Any positives or negatives? Let's start with potential positives. Do you think there's any positives out of this year?
It's hard to see them from a sort of external sort of thing. They've probably had some kids that have come and improved on their game and given them something they thought perhaps they didn't have. But at the same time, they've had a few regressions. Angus Brayshaw's regressed in a big way. Even Clayton Oliver, I wouldn't say he's regressed majorly, but he had a down year compared to last year. Tom McDonald, Wiedemann Wiedemann didn't have that many runs on the board when they gave him the bigger role, but
That's true.
Probably hasn't grown as much as they'd hoped he would into that role.
They backed in their forwards after trading Hogan to shore up their defensive stocks in May, and I don't buy that the Hogan trade was a mistake. We're not going that far, but what has happened is that their forwards that they've backed in went to shit this year.
Yeah.
But I think that obviously I think they have plenty of time to turn it around.
The Bulldogs sort of had that slide after they had the good year, except they actually succeeded in winning the flag in their good year. So maybe the Bulldogs probably have another down sort of year like the Bulldogs did, and then start to really assault again like the Bulldogs have this year.
I'll throw in a couple of positives. Yeah. Marty Hall was a good pickup for them.
Yeah, definitely. I'll back you in there.
Max Gawn had a great year.
That's a given. I don't want to say that's a given, but
yeah,
Gawn's outstanding, and he was outstanding, sort of thing.
They could potentially have pick 2 this year, which is supposedly going to land them elite talent. Whether you go as far as not to say that's a positive.
I almost thought that they should trade it down for 2 first-round picks, like try and get 2 lower first-round picks that they can use to target guys. Because I've heard them linked to Ed Langdon a fair bit. They could use pick 2 would be paying overs for Ed Langdon, but like a pick 14 or something's probably almost overs still anyway. But
they do have pick 20 already, so I reckon they could.
That's probably that is the fact Pickford has been mentioned play, but even guys better than Ed Langdon, they can throw a couple of first rounders at.
That's true.
And top up that way rather than having to wait on a kid.
I think
Jack
Martin. I don't think they're in the race for Jack Martin, but I think he would be a good pickup for them as well. Mind you, their defence is already pretty good, but Jack Martin, you could play pretty much any position on the ground.
He's one that's almost positionless. You just sort of stick him in an area where his talents can excel, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's right. So I actually differ in my opinion. I think they should hold on to pick 2 because they might get one of Raul or Anderson. Because I don't think they need to flesh out more quantity in terms of... I don't think they need to draft more kids, but they need to try and just nail the ones they get. So I'd say hold on to pick 2, flip 20 for Langdon, and then just pray that you have a better preseason next year, because I think ultimately that's what's fucked them this year.
Yeah, a lot of guys did come in undercooked, especially Stephen May was a very notable one, well publicised, underdone.
Yeah.
A few others, I believe. A lot of off-season surgery, wasn't there?
I think they had by far the most. But, I mean, again, like, Gold Coast could get a priority pick, push them out of the top 2 in the draft. And then, maybe then you'd pick flip 3 for, 2 picks in the top dozen or 15 or something like that. So, interesting. Overall grade?
I'd give them an F.
Yeah, I was going to say, you nearly said D. I was going to say that is a resounding F for me.
Yeah, I was like, F.
Yeah.
I was trying to be nice, but nah, F.
And in terms of 2020 projection, I would say improvement.
Pushing towards the 8, but probably just miss it, sort of thing. But they'll be in the thick of the hunt for the 8, but probably just miss.
I'd say bottom 6 or 8 again. I just think sometimes a fall that bad has psychological effects. I rarely, off the top of my head, I can't think of many teams that dipped badly and then came straight back up. I thought Adelaide was going to do it this year, and they didn't. We'll get on.
So Adelaide pretty much did what I suggested. They were in the hunt, but didn't really close the 8.
Yeah, that's right.
But they were right in it till the end.
Yeah, but I just mean from going from a top 2 team to slipping to 12th last year.
Yeah.
Many thought, including myself, they'd bounce straight back up, and they didn't. They stagnated. But as I said, we'll get onto that. Why don't you take us through Carlton now? And how would you sum up this season in a sentence?
I'd say they had the slow start, obviously, but they've shown great improvement under Tag. That's probably where I'd expected them to have been. They sort of unlocked some of their guys and freed them up and given them the ability to showcase what they can do. And now that they seem to be maximising all that talent they've brought in the past 3-4 years. And it's starting to come together. It'll still take time, obviously, because there's a lot of kids, a lot of figuring stuff out, but it's starting to come together. Teague seems to be the man for the job, I think.
Any clear positives?
Teague, I'd say.
Yeah.
He's emerged as a great coaching candidate, guy that can really get him going.
I think he's really added a sense of excitement and belief that Carlton hadn't had for a few years. More than a few years, I think. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing that he's won them games, but I would say that I've said this before, but I don't think it's as simple as David Teague good, Brendan Bolton bad.
Definitely sort of complicated because Bolton, a lot of people right up until his game were still very pro Bolton. Yeah. Give him time. It's a young group. Give him time, which is still a fair argument, I feel, but sometimes a different perspective combined with what Bolton's already imparted on you just can elevate you to that next level. You say it a lot in sports. I sort of think with those teams on the way up, and when they unfortunately let their coach go, a lot of people go, yeah, the coach could have got them there, but the new coach ultimately did get them there, so
true.
It's hard to shit on.
Mitch Robertson on his own podcast said that sometimes when you drop a coach, the effect on the players can be pronounced because a lot of them don't know if they're getting contracts suddenly.
Yeah.
Because you don't know where you sit in the new regime.
That's also a very fair point. Yeah.
So
and great perspective from an actual AFL player as well, obviously. So
yeah.
it's a very good point.
He has a very good podcast for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, show. Other positives, obviously, Cripps probably had a career best season, could win the Brownlow. And just some, Sammy Walsh.
Mackay. Yeah, Walsh, obviously, rising star, definitely.
The fact that they improved on last year in terms of wins and losses. There's a lot of positives, really. They pushed West Coast when West Coast were flying this year.
They've pushed a lot of teams, really.
Yeah. They beat Brisbane in a really good game.
One negative I'll mention briefly is that Liam Stocker trade, maybe. That's probably...
I like it.
They've cost them pick 3 or 4.
But they've got 8 and 19.
I guess Adelaide didn't finish too much shit of them, but...
Yeah. And Adelaide, there's talk... Again, we talk about Adelaide, but there's talk of Adelaide going to flip 3 for 2 later picks, which is exactly what they did in the first place. I don't know. I still like the Carlton trade. If it was pick 2 and it was Rowell or Anderson, maybe.
Would have been a bit more disastrous. I'll definitely give you that.
At the end of the day, we can't assess it because, they might get a 200 gamer in stock and then pick 8 this year could be another 150 gamer and pick 3 could be a dud.
Yeah, that's why I sort of mention it briefly. It's a bit like... seems like it could bite them in the ass a bit, but...
Yeah, interesting. The other negative, I guess, was just the horrid start to the year and Brent Pong getting sacked. That's a negative. But eventually they turned that into a positive. Who should they target? Or at least, what is their off-season strategy? Let's keep it simple. They have picks 8, 39 and 44.
I've sort of got, just briefly here, try and continue to bring in strong, experienced talents, like keep targeting these top guys, even if you don't necessarily get them. You're eventually going to get one, the way your club's trajectory is. One of these guys is going to go, yeah, something's happening in Carlton, I want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Especially when they're backing up $2 million signing bonuses, even though Cornelio turned that down.
I agree with you. Cornelio at least got close to signing with Carlton, it seemed, which is probably the closest they've got to signing a player like that in a long time, maybe since Judd. And then Jack Martin has requested them reportedly. I don't know if that's definitely going to happen, but at least he likes what he sees enough to initially signal Carlton. So obviously Cornelio's out the door. I agree with you. I don't think they need to be targeting the draft. I think they should be consolidating a list with mature players. I think they've got in a lot of the young talent they want. They just needed to nurture it. So some of these players that have come to mind just for my mind, Jack Martin, obviously, which might cost them not necessarily pick 8 on its own, but a combination of 8 and maybe a downgrade.
Yeah.
Braden Sire, aka Phil.
He'd be a great player because he's a guy that should be getting games, but Collingwood's just that deep and talented.
Yeah.
It's a struggle for him, but any other club, he'd probably be almost straight in the gut starting midfielder.
Yeah, exactly. And for the same reason, Louis Taylor, I believe, is playing reserves at the moment for Brisbane, who's Victorian originally. Yeah. Talented boy, right age profile for them. And Sam Powell-Pepper is my
He's a bit of a weird one for me, Louis Taylor. I don't really rate him highly. Maybe a guy to sort of kick a couple of other guys into gear, but I don't really see him pushing 22 if everything goes right.
I think it's more about the depth. I think he'd be best 22 at Carlton.
Maybe next year, but not
beyond. Yeah, that's okay. But I think it's a stopgap measure. That's what I'm suggesting with Sire and Taylor. But Powell-Pepper...
Sire's a long-term prospect, I'd say.
He's fairly mature.
Yeah, he's mature, but still like a long-term guy. You'd be eyeing in to have in your team for 4 or 5 years. Louis Taylor's sort of...
Fair enough.
Like I'll cop him until I can get something better. I sort of feel, no offence to him, but...
Fair enough.
He kind of gives that vibe, I feel.
Okay, fair enough. And Sammy Powell-Pepper might be on the cards for a trade this year. It will probably cost them, again, a pretty high pick just because he's contracted. And Port will probably play hardball. But again, I think he could be an A-grade talent. I'm talking him up a little bit there.
I do rate his potential as well, that's for sure.
Yeah. How would you grade Carlton's year?
I'd give him a C+, a B, something in that sort of range.
I'd probably say C for me. C+ maybe, actually.
C+,
Yeah, we'll go C+, just because obviously sacked their coach. Things didn't go all that well. Finished on a real high, and they look to be going in the right direction. And what does 2020 hold for them?
Maybe a B+ grade.
No, I mean late ladder position.
Probably in that 10 to 13 range, sort of starting to threaten and be close, but probably just outside that contending for the 8 group, but nipping at their heels.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I put them at 8 to 12, which is a little bit more generous.
Yeah.
I could see them pushing finals. Again, like Brisbane last year, nobody saw them rising so quickly. But yeah, it remains to be seen.
Yeah. They haven't shown as much as Brisbane did going into this year, I don't think.
Yeah, fair enough. That's fair. All right, cool. So next up, I will take us through the Sydney Swans, summarise their season in a sentence, which is the format I'm rolling with. 2019 was a transitional year that was perhaps a long time coming. So what I mean by that is they've been so good for so long, they really staved off any kind of rebuild, and for the first time in pretty much my life, I'm seeing the Sydney Swans go through a bit of a rebuild. The positives from this year, they do have some of the best young talent in the league in some positions, in my opinion. So Blake, he's going to be a great forward. I think Ollie Florent is probably not talked about quite enough in the media, maybe. I don't know. But that's just kind of me hanging out.
He's emerging. I don't know if he's there yet, but he's coming.
I think he finished the season really strongly for him. I think he got Brownlow votes, in my opinion, at the end of the year. I think he's going to be a very good midfielder. Will Hayward, I've mentioned before. Obviously, Heaney and Mills are still quite young as well. So they're going pretty well in that respect. And there's some other positives. Tom Papley had I don't think he made the All-Australian squad, did he?
The 40.
I don't know. I don't think he did, but he made
40.
my reserves team. He's probably in the top couple, or maybe top 3 or 4 small forwards this year in terms of
goals,
pressure stats, and goals. Hit the scoreboard, 37 goals. Dane Rampey, obviously another contender for All-Australian.
Perennial sort of contender for All-Australian, you'd say, with Dane Rampey.
Exactly, yeah.
You know what you're getting with him, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's right. Negatives, I would say Buddy Franklin just playing 10 games is a bit of a blow.
Considering you're paying him $1 million a year or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It was front-loaded or whatever. Was it front-loaded or back-loaded, this deal? I can't recall. It was nearly 10.
I think back-end.
The 10 years is close to coming up, ain't it?
Yeah, so 2023, I think. I think it was 2013 he signed it.
Yeah, something like that.
I'd say back-ended because they wouldn't have been able to front-end it back then. Sydney were pushing for premierships and then. So, yeah, it was back-ended. The fact that he played 10 games is blow. I mean, obviously they're developing in a transitional year, but obviously he gets bums on seats. Sydney's always trying to attract... Sydney's always trying to stay relevant in the market in Sydney, obviously.
It's a competitive market with however many rugby teams are floating around in Sydney.
Exactly.
People are all invested in, like we are invested in our AFL teams.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And the other negative for them is injuries, particularly to their rucks. They could barely get a ruckman on the park this year. Off-season strategy. So they go into this season, or this draft season, with 4, 23 and 40. So, as I said, they've drafted some really good talent in recent years.
To be fair with that, some of it is academy talent
that
they've lucked into, but
that is true.
It doesn't necessarily indicate that their list management team know how to evaluate talent. It just fell into their lap.
That's true. That's true. But I do think they have nailed a couple of extra other ones as well. So I'll start first. They've lost so much experience over the recent years. So Hanbury obviously left last year. McVeigh and Jack have just retired. Grundy's retired, and Nick Smith. So apparently they've lost 1,048 games of experience. So that is a serious transitional period for the Swans. So in my opinion, I'd probably look at keeping pick 4 just to really round out that rebuild.
Be worth doing in that case because they're still building something new. Like they don't have the pieces and need to nurture them. They're still acquiring those pieces to build.
True. One other thing is that they've always been really good at, picking up undervalued talent from other clubs, and I'm talking about for the last 10 to 15 years they've been good at this, and turning them into really good role players. I guess it's development, game plan, culture that allows them to do things like this. So I think they should continue to do that. They picked up like Ryan Clark and Jackson Thurlow last year. Maybe some other players like that, they're going to be cheap that they can add to consolidate their side so that the young kids are not exposed every week. They've been linked to Danaher. Do you think that's weird?
That is very... I was reading all that and I'm still bewildered that it's even a thing.
Why would you have... I mean, I feel like Danaher and Buddy Franklin are the same team. It's not a waste, but it's just like you... too much of your money in one basket, almost. You know, you're paying 2 massive key forwards.
More Danaher leaving Essendon was more the reason why I would sort of frame. I'm like,
I think he had a link to Sydney as a father-son as well.
Wasn't he taken by
he was,
of a relative?
But I didn't know this, but I believe he could have played for Sydney.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how. I guess maybe his dad played for Sydney. I'm sure my ignorance there, but I don't remember a Danaher playing for Sydney. Again, this was like
before
10
our time.
years. Well, no, it was probably around the time I was born. Anyway, yeah, I just think it's strange. Obviously, there's Franklin. They've got McBlakey and McCartan who are starting to find their feet as young key forwards. So, I don't know. Again, it's more of a marketing one, that one, I reckon. Yeah, so that's why they go for a big fish. But some of these other players that I mentioned who they might pick up to consolidate their list, like the undervalued ones, Tom Cutler from Brisbane has struggled to get on the field. I think he's a really talented player. Alex Keith, I've talked about. Sire's another one. Louis Taylor. Again, I reckon they could just pick up a Louis Taylor and turn him into best 22 just because that's how good they are. Hugh Greenwood, Sam Bell-Pepper. Again, these are the kind of the same names, but you feel like you'd add any number of those players.
I feel like whoever gets Hugh Greenwood and gives him a regular game will end up feeling pretty happy about making that decision, I think.
Yeah.
I can see him turning out pretty good.
I agree. And yeah, again, Sydney is the sort of team you'd feel confident could get the best out of him. How would you grade their season?
Sydney, I'd sort of probably D plus, C minus, bit.
Yeah. I put a D because I called at the start of the year this would be a transitional year for them. I was right in that respect, but the drop-off was probably a little bit too strong. I know they had their injuries, but again, they finished bottom 4. It's hard to grade them any higher than that because they did play finals last year. So I would say a D, but not an F.
Yeah, that's why I was sort of like that D plus, C minus, because you knew there was going to be down year, but you can't give a good grade to a down year regardless of if it's expected or not, sort of thing.
I think sliding into the bottom 4 automatically means you can't get a C. 2020 outlook, I'd say depending on signings, they could put pressure on the 8. So assuming, they get some injury luck next year, let's say Buddy plays 20 games and they sign, some good talent, then I could see them pushing finals again. That's how quickly I believe Sydney can regenerate.
I can also see them stagnated down here another year or two before they figure it out.
I'd say that's probably the safe bet, in my opinion. Like, I feel like I'd be inclined to put them in my bottom 6 again, but I'm more think like if Buddy plays 20 games and they get good talent, then I feel like they could turn around pretty quickly.
I still feel like other teams' talent has them covered at this stage.
I don't know. Sydney at times this year played some really good footy. They annihilated West Coast.
Yeah.
Mind you, some crap teams annihilated West Coast.
Yeah, I'll say West Coast have had a few downs this year.
Yeah, but yeah, anyway.
I'm changing the subject as soon as I bring up a few down times for West Coast.
I think we've gone on enough about the Eagles' down times. We're up to St Kilda, so why don't you run us through your assessment of the... I've
sort of got here that they've treaded water, really. They're sort of same old they've been the past couple of years. They did show some improvement once they got rid of Richardson, had a bit of a shake-up. Again, probably raising players shitting themselves, worrying about their jobs.
Yeah, there was a stomach bug going through the club.
But yeah, sort of did about the same. Uninspiring.
Uninspiring,
really.
Yeah. Well, they did have some pretty bad injury luck this year. I think they had missed among the most games of experience this year from one club. I think it was up there.
Yeah, Geary had a real rough year. That's for sure.
He did. They didn't get
quad thing.
Oh yeah, that was gross.
Yeah.
Carlisle didn't get on the field much. Who's an important player for them. Hanbury had a late start to his St Kilda career.
And even then, he was in and out. Once he came in, he would still play a few weeks, disappear a few weeks, come in. He was in and out.
Jack Stevens been one of their best midfielders over the stretch. Obviously missed a lot of football through mental health issues. General positives and negatives.
Positives, probably Jack Billings. He had probably a comeback year, sort of really re-established himself as a talented guy that can do something in this league. He's really put that out there, but he's still capable.
I think he'll get in the high teens on Brownlow medal night, which is a good season. They've had another guy, Hunter Clark.
Yeah.
Was a guy I've always
I remember you frothing him during that draft.
Yeah, I always have a favourite during the draft. He was one of them.
Yeah. One of them, he was your biggest favourite from that draft, I'd say, in my humble estimation.
I can't remember, but you're probably right.
Yeah, you wouldn't shut up about him.
Okay, let's not go too far.
Your eyes twinkled when loving gazes whenever you mentioned his name. You went into throes of ecstasy. But shut up now.
Started speaking in rhymes. God, where were we?
Jack Billings.
I was just going to say Hunter Clark sort of emerged a little bit. Yeah. So I think developmentally, there's been some positives for them.
His second half of the year was great, Hunter Clark. I'll give you that.
Yeah. So what do you think about Ratton getting the job yesterday or whatever it was?
I would have had a bit more of a suss out of what was available if I was them, really. I don't think he showed quite enough to outright just go, here's the job. But he showed a bit, and if the playing group and everyone feels like he's worth a crack, give him a year or two contract, I guess. I don't know how long his contract was, but...
Yeah, probably 2.
Yeah, a year or 2.
3, yeah.
Be worth giving a year or 2.
I don't think it would have been 1 year.
Yeah, definitely. It wouldn't have been 1, realistically, but you get what I mean. More like don't lock him up long term like Freo did Ross Lyon in 2016. Give him a couple of years to sort of show what he can do.
Other than maybe Carlton and Teague, I question all of these teams signing their caretaker coach off the bat.
Yeah.
Like North had no reason to sign Reece Shaw straight away.
North did improve though, but I don't know if. But I do agree. I don't know if it was necessarily just because of Reece Shaw that they improved, but
I think after they signed him, they scored their lowest ever score against Geelong. They kind of stabilised back to exactly where they were before. I think on the whole, North probably finished still a little bit lower than they should have. I think their first half of the year was that bad. Again, talking about the wrong club now. Back to St Kilda. I agree they should have done a more extensive recruitment process. To be fair, Ratton probably is the most qualified assistant going around in terms of the experience.
He has had head coaching gigs. He's done all those coaching courses and shit that the AFL always talk about.
That's right.
The level 4 coaching course.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. So I kind of understand on paper why they picked him. But nonetheless, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be the best coach, and they couldn't have done an extensive recruitment process. And I think that's a little bit negligent, personally. But anyway... They've got some worries, I think, in terms of list management this year. They've got picks 5, 55 and 68. There's talk of Jack Stephen leaving the club, which would be a disaster.
Josh Bruce.
Josh Bruce.
That's been talked about getting traded because you can sort of say why, because they drafted Max King last year. They really like him. He's recovered from an ACL throughout the year.
Yeah,
I'd really ideally like to see that investment pay off.
You could probably fit both in. Well, Carlisle, they might offload as well.
Even Carlisle.
Yeah, like they aggressively trying to trade him, allegedly. Blake Acres is another one who's been linked to Perth, one of the Perth clubs. That
could be partly because of the Brad Hill to St Kilda whispers.
I think West Coast have asked the question as well, but it is more likely, in my opinion, that Fremantle will be the club that pick him up if Brad Hill does go the other way. So that is a positive for them. Brad Hill allegedly... He hasn't requested specifically St Kilda, has he?
I think he just said Victoria's.
Yeah,
sort of
but St Kilda seems to be the one that's bobbed up a lot.
Yeah, they're the one. Apparently, they're offering him like $900 a year.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
That's what I've read. $900 a year. St Kilda.
That's the thing. That's the problem with St Kilda. They've got a disadvantage in the league where they have to offer inflated contracts. North Melbourne are the same, offering massive deals to players that are decent, but wouldn't get that deal at a big club like Richmond or Collingwood. It's just the unfortunate inequity in our league, but I digress.
That's the way salary caps sort of work, though, is if there's an unlimited cap on what you can pay a player, top guys will get inflated in a market, even if they're only just the best available free agent. Doesn't necessarily mean they're the best player in the league.
But I just mean it compared to some other clubs, St Kilda have to offer this amount of money to even be in the equation. Well, Carlton were offering significantly more than Hawthorn or GWS, I believe, for Cornelio. I believe Cornelio turned down nearly $3 million at Carlton to stay at GWS. Carlton's another one who, it may change in the near future, but they just got to offer so much more money. Polak got a massive deal. Mind you, Polak's been a really good signing.
Yeah, we worked out.
Again, we're taking it back to North Melbourne. But yeah, anyway. So Brad Hill coming in is potentially good. I think they need to still keep looking at mature players because if they're going to lose Jack Stephen, Carlisle and Josh Bruce, then that is a disaster for the club.
Definitely. I even had in my own notes here bring in more established talent to complement their core guys like your Billingses.
Yep.
Those sort of guys.
So I would look at Sam Powell-Pepper for that because he's a long-term young player as well as
fit the age profile,
best 22 as well probably. Brad Hill's the obvious one.
He'd had a nice contrast to their midfield as well, that more crashing bull style of midfielder. They seem to have a more finessey.
Yeah, I guess so.
To an extent. Jack Stevens obviously a bull, but
I think they need skill and class still in that midfield. But yeah, No, I still think Sam Powell-Pepper would be a good pickup for them. Alex Keith's been linked to him.
He's been linked to everyone so far, Alex Keith.
Yeah, mostly the teams. I think it's just because he's a bit of a Moneyball pick, and these teams that I've gone through are players that need sort of experienced players on a bit of a reduced price.
And he's a guy, because if Adelaide get all their key back stuff healthy, he's not necessarily in the 22 at this point, is he?
Yeah. Also, Dode is coming back from an
Dode,
ACL. Yeah, but he wants out apparently. I think there's a few players that want out of Adelaide.
Yeah, it sounds like Adelaide's imploding.
Yeah. Speaking of imploding, let's move on to Fremantle. No, just kidding. We'll quickly grade St Kilda. I gave them a D+ because they were supposed to improve this year and pretty much for exactly where they finished. Finished last year. They hadn't improved. What about yourself?
Another D+. I say D+, C- type of team. Treaded water.
Yep.
Didn't do great. Can't give them a good grade, but didn't completely shit the bed sort of thing.
2020 outlook, I see them maybe finishing in the same area.
Yeah,
it's subject to signings, but
another year of treading water.
Yep, especially with a new coach. So, yeah. All right, Fremantle.
Yeah.
Take us through it. Season in a sentence.
Well, it's yet another year as a Fremantle fan where we've been inconsistent as fuck. One week we'll knock off a great team, the next week we'll lose to friggin' Gold Coast.
Are you speaking in rhymes? That's true. So you beat Collingwood away, you beat Geelong, and
GWS away.
You beat Brisbane and GWS away, and you lost to Gold Coast and Carlton this year.
And Melbourne.
That's the bottom three.
Yep.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yep. Standard Fremantle is what we're good for. We'll beat who we shouldn't beat, then lose to who we shouldn't lose to.
Yeah. Positives?
Positives, I'd say...
Ross Lane gone.
Obviously, but... I can't really say that. I'd say
that is a positive in your opinion, though, isn't it?
I feel like it'll improve the team, but it's not a nice thing to sort of be like, yeah, ding dong is dead sort of thing. But he did what he could. But I feel like we needed something new. The positives, I'd say Brayshaw's second half of the year, he was great. I've always known he's great, but he's starting to show it football wise, but. Because at times in his first year and probably early in the year, I sort of like give him a stint in the waffle, let him kill guys in the waffle for a few weeks and just get outstanding, come back in full of confidence life. But he just came in and did all that anyway. Yeah. So it was good to see that translate into some results in games.
Luke Ryan.
Yeah, Luke Ryan, definitely.
Alex Pearce when fit.
Yeah. Well, I didn't expect him to be as good as he was coming back. Alex Pearce, but I've always rated him, always regarded his talent as like a lockdown defender, but I didn't expect him to be right in the thick of All-Australian contention until he went down.
Would you go as far as to say as Rory Lobb was a positive?
Definitely. Even though we traded in a good pick to get him, but we needed that sort of talent. He can do what we needed him to do when Darcy was struggling, when Sandy was injured, he rucked for us, even though we brought him in as a forward. Another
positive I'll chuck in there is you got more, and this is kind of a familiar theme over the last few years, but you got more exposure to that younger sort of group. So Griffin Logue, someone who's got on the park this year, he's struggled for games in the past with injury, right?
Yeah. His health's been a bit of an issue for him.
You mentioned Brayshaw. Even Chera, I know that isn't like as favourably looked on right now, but I think he's playing maybe out of position, and he will still be better for the games, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have no issue with Chera. Chera's doing what he could, but he was, probably being put in positions that long term he's not going to be in necessarily as a player. Because of Ross's reliance on older sort of talent, he could have perhaps given Chera more opportunities where he's going to end up playing.
Fife is a big positive. All-Australian captain, potential high finish in the Brownlow. Mickey Walters, All-Australian.
It was great to see Mickey Walters finally get an All-Australian.
Yeah. Was that his first?
Yeah.
I didn't actually realise.
Yeah, it took him 11 years or something. When they did the big broadcast, it was him and Basher because they'd both been in the league for so long and finally cracked an All-Australian team.
There you go. I didn't notice that, actually.
So they gave them some extra love for taking something.
Gross. Negatives. Obviously, the inconsistency,
offensive structures, I've really felt was lacking. We couldn't our skills, was probably a big part of that. We couldn't hit targets consistently. We were shanking stuff.
probably didn't quite get enough out of your high-profile recruit Jesse Hogan. I wouldn't say he was terrible or anything like that, but it's just there was a lot of promise and lack of delivery. But that might change if your theory's right about the offensive structures.
Yeah.
If he comes in, he could improve that. Oh, sorry, no. If that improves, that could improve.
Yeah,
that's what I mean to say.
But even his health is an issue. A lot of people, even Melbourne people, were a bit like worried about his long-term viability. That's probably why they were sort of happy to see him through the door, I think.
Yeah, I don't know.
I hope he can pull it all out.
Yeah, I think
Obviously,
he'll be okay.
I'm a fan. I got him on my membership card this year.
Oh dear, that's funny. Yeah, okay.
We could pick which player we wanted. I chose him. I read a funny story. I think it was before we'd even signed him. Someone rang the Fremantle membership mob saying, "Can I get Jesse Hogan on my membership card?" And they're like, "Yeah, we don't actually have him."
That was me. I told you that story.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. It was you too, actually. Yeah, I knew I'd heard that somewhere.
No, so the story was my friend who you know.
Yeah.
He might be listening to this actually. G'day Tay, if you listen to this. I was with him when he called the Fremantle Dockers to renew his membership.
Yeah.
And this was before, as you said, before Hogan requested he trade. And he's like, hey, can I please get Hogan on my membership card? That was pretty funny. Off-season strategy. So you go into the draft with 6, 24 and 78. Yeah. Sorry, were you going to say
I was going to say, I've got written here, back up a dump truck full of money and dump it on Tim Kelly's lawn and try and lure him away from choosing West Coast.
I thought you were going to say on his chest. Sure.
That's my strategy.
Sure.
I feel like if we could land him, that would help our midfield exponentially. Him and Fife and Brayshaw and those sort of guys coming through. Even if we do, well, we're going to lose Brad Hill, realistically.
Yeah.
I'll start bringing in someone like Tim Kelly mitigates the loss that big because Brad Hill is going to be a big loss for us.
Yeah, that's true. I agree.
In terms of our draft, I'm sort of...
Well, one kind of can't happen without the other.
Yeah.
You know,
I'd rather trade the picks for established talent. That's probably where I'm at.
Yeah, especially if you're losing Langdon and Hill.
Yeah.
I personally think you need a big plan B for Tim Kelly because
obviously we need to cover ours.
Yeah, because I think it's less than 50-50 he chooses Fremantle at least. But I mean, obviously I have no idea. I'm just guessing.
I'm more meant shoot your shot, do everything you can to get him, and if you don't, you don't.
So plan B, in my opinion, there's a few WA players that are worth going for this year. I've mentioned it to you before. Shai Bolton, I think, is a really good talent at Richmond. Out of contract, apparently homesick, forward mid. I think he'll be a gun wherever he goes. I really hope West Coast get him. Blake Acres, I think, would be a good flip for Ed Langdon. Yeah. He could be involved in a Brad Hill deal to St Kilda. And again, Sam Powell-Pepper as well.
I wouldn't mind Powell-Pepper as well, actually.
Yeah.
He was one I wanted to draft back when we could have.
Me too, for West Coast. So I think even if you just turn Hill and Langdon into Powell-Pepper, Acres and Bolton, you get 3 good WA players under 25 and all with fairly good talent, in my opinion. So that is my bold plan for Fremantle. And I think I certainly think you have the picks and stuff too.
We've got assets to work with. That's one area that we're going to be well advantaged.
Exactly.
In the trade period.
Very well endowed, you might say.
Absolutely.
Quickly before the camera runs out, give them a grade.
Dockers. C-.
Oh, I gave them an F.
Yeah.
Is that a bit too harsh? That's the biggest gap. Nah, that's fine.
Nah,
I just think it is a bit of an abject failure that you didn't improve against the competition. You're going to lose some key players, and you got no
the internal
coach
shitstorm.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I can't argue it. I just didn't want to be too shitty on them, sort of thing. But
yeah, cool. So I'm just aware time's getting a little away from us. The footy is starting in about 50 minutes, so time pressure. So we'll just quickly go through North Melbourne. This is my team to go through. I think I've got the next couple. So you've
got everyone but Hawthorn.
Okay,
I've got Hawthorn.
I got the next 3. Yeah,
Hawthorn.
North Melbourne summarised their season in a sentence. I said, considering preseason expectations, 2019 can only be described as a failure. So to elaborate on that, they went big on a big recruiting drive. Obviously went for Gaff. They went for Kelly last year. I like this strategy of going for these talented players, want to skip a rebuild, which is what the big clubs are doing, and I think that is the new model to go for. And I think they have some good young talent as well, which helps. But to get Pollock, Hall, and Pittard.
Yeah, he had a really good bounce back year, Jasper Pittard, actually.
He did, yeah.
He was in all Australian discussions, I think I saw.
Really?
Like for the 40, I think he was in discussions for the 40.
Fair enough. I think Pollock's a really good player. I like him. But I guess what I mean is, for them, to signal their intentions to go hard for established talent and then miss the 8 in the way they did. And I think, what did they finish, like 10th or 11th?
Yeah.
Something like that. I think 11th. Maybe 12th. It doesn't matter. That is quite a far way off the mark. So I would say this season was a bit shit to articulate it like that.
Very eloquent.
I'll go through the positives. Nick Larkey has emerged as a good forward prospect. Simpkin and Zohar have emerged as well.
Yeah, I was going to say Zohar.
A local boy. He's from around this
East
way.
Freo?
Yeah, East Freo. Mutual friends. Jai Simpkin, I've always liked. I think he's going to be a good player. So the next layer is coming through. And even LDU, I've seen some really good signs from. I think he still could be the best player from his draft, which has gone big. But I just think he has so much potential as that real big body. Maybe not as good as Pat Cripps, but he's just in that same vein. Whereas some of the other players around him in that draft don't have the same potential. That's what I mean. Anyway, Ben Brown and Tarrant were really good bookends. Ben Brown was unfairly snubbed for AA, in my opinion. And Cunnington had one of his best years. And obviously Sean Higgins is a proven player. Negatives. Started 1-5 and that ruined their season. They really had no way of coming back after that. After they start...
First round, lost by 80.
That was another one. So they got belted by Fremantle by 82 points. And Fremantle were a good team at the time. Yeah. But still, it doesn't look good on paper. Lowest score ever in the club, 1 goal, 8-14. And the fact that they sacked their coach, that is a negative. Even though it was like a mutual sacking, I'm not really sure. Yeah.
These things
they're still paying him out, so they obviously sacked him.
Yeah, these mutual sackings, I'm always sus with those sort of things. It's half the time it's just people saving face.
Yeah, or the club saving face on their behalf. Yeah. Which is fair enough.
Yeah, it's the nice thing to do. Like, I'm obviously not shitting on it, but that's realistically what it is.
Yeah, that's right. To go through their off-season strategy, they're going to have picks 7, 25 and 43. They added Taron Thomas, a top 10 pick last year through their academy, so it's not like they've gone a while without a draft pick that's quite high. I would say ideally, a big fish is ideal. I don't know who's realistically
viable. Yeah, that's
so
the issue.
They could go for a Jack Martin, Pal Pepper. These aren't, or Tom Cutler would be a good one actually. They should go for him anyway. Yeah, Jack Martin, Pal Pepper. Even then, they're not really big fish.
Yeah, I was going to say big fish is a very loose term in that context.
Yeah,
no offense to those guys.
Like a Cornelio would have been nice, but yeah. So I guess Braden Sire is another one. I guess what I mean is they should try and recruit for the here and now, but failing that, it's a good opportunity for them to draft and develop talent while they've still got good established players in. I'm really big on that. If you've got high draft picks, good potential players, get them in while you can, while you've still got a team that's functioning well. In my opinion, there's no point going down the dirty full rebuild.
The dirty Sanchez.
Oh, yeah, like the old Queensland clubs have done. The dirty Sanchez. As they say in the classics. Yeah, so I guess what I mean is maybe if they choose to take pick 7, blood him now, get the games into while they've still got a Higgins on the list.
I've heard rumours Higgins could be on the way out.
I have heard that as well. I think he's contracted for at least another year, so it's up to North's discretion. They could get a valuable deal for him.
Because I've heard Geelong is potential Tim Kelly cover.
Yeah, but they've also got Jack Stephen potentially.
Yeah, he's another one. And he's a local boy from down that way, isn't he? He's
Higgins? Yeah, you might be right.
No, I mean Stevens, Geelong based as well.
Oh, yeah, I believe so. I'm actually not too sure, but you're probably right. He's constantly linked to them, so you're probably right.
I think he's from that neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Also, something I didn't realise the other day when we were talking about the cut, I completely go off subject quickly, when we were talking about the Geelong-Melbourne home field thing. I didn't realise Geelong's like the Mandurah sort of drive. I thought it was more of a Bunbury 2-hour sort of drive.
Yeah,
but it's an hour drive.
It's an hour, yeah.
I didn't realise it was that short of a drive.
Yeah.
So that makes it not as drastic a issue, I guess.
See, this is an informative podcast for all the people who live in Melbourne that didn't know Geelong was an hour away.
Mate, that's us West Aussies, mate.
They've never heard of Bunbury either. To grade them, Bush, I'm going to give them a D-. I think there's enough positives to spare the F. I'm pretty ruthless with some of these grades, but these teams all did miss the 8.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's been enough promise from the young players to spare them the F, and the fact that they've turned it around the second half of the year. So I'll go D-. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'd probably go the same. Back half of the year showed enough to make this year not a complete and utter write-off, but still not a great year.
Yeah. 2020, it's got to be finals or bust, surely.
That's surely what they're thinking internally. Whether I could still I don't know if I still see them pushing into the 8, really. I'd see them in the thick of the hunt, but
yeah,
probably missing out.
I think if they
closer to missing out than getting in, if that makes sense.
If they played all year like they did after round 6, they'll probably make finals.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Anyway, we'll move on to Adelaide, and I'll summarise their season in a sentence. Despite jumping up a spot on the ladder, things have seemed to have gotten worse for the Crows in 2019. So 12 months ago, we were talking about how they just had a disastrous season.
How they just had a disastrous training camp. Now they're just a disaster. Disastrous.
Yeah, that was a curious set of events. But obviously they slumped from 2nd to 12th. They finished 11th this year, but I actually feel less confident about their prospects going forward. We'll start with their positives. Darcy Fogarty has come through, and obviously everyone sort of rated him, but I was really impressed at how he tore West Coast up in round 21.
Yeah.
Kicked 5 goals, a hip and shoulder Shanahan out of the way, which is not an easy thing to do.
Big boy.
I think he could be a good player. Brad Crouch was probably their best player this year after not playing at all last year. He was top 5 in the league for possessions. Talia had good enough of a season to make the All-Australian squad. And Riley O'Brien emerged as a good ruck prospect. Well, not prospect, a good ruck player, to be honest.
Right, they've had him on the list for a while, so Source was keeping him out, really.
Yeah, that's right. The negatives are they only won 2 games from their last 9, and that included a huge drubbing at the hands of Port Adelaide in a game I think they should have won. Well, going into it, I thought they were going to win, so to lose to your rival by 10 goals.
That's never good.
Exactly. They had the second healthiest list this year, or at least it did late in the season.
Yeah.
So weren't really injury struck, and they had the second oldest list in the competition. So you have to think, where's the upside if your team is languishing in around about 8, which is where they were for most of the season. They finished 11th. There's talk of unrest and a potential exodus, like there has been in recent years.
As captain.
Yep, Texas stepped down as captain as well. So there's a bit of a changing of the guard, perhaps. I'm a little bit worried about their off-season strategy. So they've got picks 3 from last year from Carlton, 21 and 26, which are good picks. But I'm worried. There's talk of Betts leaving. Walker probably won't leave the club. Greenwood, I think I've heard Seedsman.
They were barely giving Greenwood a game anyway, though.
Yeah,
that's why he'd won out, I'd say.
Sure. But what I'm concerned about is I think an exodus is pretty disastrous for the culture of a club. I mean, the culture's probably fucked anyway. But I just think it's going to have a destabilising effect.
They're pretty...
Like, if they go for an aggressive rebuild, it's very risky. It's always risky, in my opinion. I'm not a big fan of it anymore. So
I still think tear the walls down when you have to and start again, but...
Yeah, but see, that was the Fremantle model, and look where they are now. I often think this. I've been asking people recently, do you think Fremantle should have rebuilt as aggressively as they have?
In our case, I think we were wrong because we were still a pretty good team when we went to shit. In our context...
You finished first the last year, the previous year, so...
But if you've been shit for a few years and you can't seem to adjust...
I think you can rebuild and it doesn't have to be as drastic, I guess is what I'm getting at. So I would just urge Adelaide to be careful. But they've got good picks, so they don't need to sell the farm. They've got pick 3. So I think, as I said before, I think they could end up flipping pick 3, which could become 4 for 2 later picks anyway. So they're kind of shuffling deck shares there. But I would say get the youth in. I'm not against getting the youth in. It's just don't sell the farm. Is where I'm getting with that. Their targets this year, in terms of the off-season, they're generally pretty only good at sort of luring South Australian talent. Off the top of my head, I can't imagine them luring any big Victorian players over. So with that in mind, Aaron Francis could be on the move from Essendon. And Scharenberg has been rumoured to be listed by Collingwood as trade bait.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my lazy assessment of who their potential targets are. But
you never really hear them linked to too many, really.
Yeah.
Bryce Gibbs was the biggest one a few years ago, but other than that...
Betts,
I guess.
They've taken some good early picks in the last few years. They took Darcy Fogarty. They took Ned McHenry last year, Chase Jones. This year they're going to have pick 3. They need to keep taking the picks, like I've just said like a million times. I don't think they should be making moves for experience. I don't think that's a priority for them.
They've got it enough.
How would you grade this season?
D.
I've given them an F as well. This is the third team I've given an F just because they should have bounced back up this year and they have no injury excuse, things are a little bit rotten.
Yeah. Something's wrong in Adelaide.
In 2020, where do you think they could finish?
Bottom 8.
Yeah, I'm going to say bottom 6, which might be underrating them a little bit, but nonetheless, I think they're going to aggressively try and get games into their youth, and that will come at a cost. They'll lose some games. So, all right, man, I'm knackered. This is the third team in a row I've had, so I'm just going to race through Port Adelaide, and then you'll go through Hawthorn, and then we'll be done with the podcast.
You're the one that chose teams, mate?
Yeah, I did. I don't know why I did it in this order. To summarise Port Adelaide in a sentence, they're arguably, and I say arguably, I mean definitely the most inconsistent side this season, and ultimately they wasted another opportunity to play finals in back-to-back years. So, positives, they nailed their 3 first-rounders last year, and that was really important. They lost Wingard and Polek. It's important to get the guys to replace them right.
Great draft, for sure.
Rosie, Dersmo, and Butters, I think are all going to be good players at the very least. I guess you could say it's a positive they didn't get worse despite losing Wingard and Polek. As I said, people speculated they would. Travis Boak had his career best season. Tailed off at the second half of the year, but it was still good. Dan Houston moved to the midfield and was a good player for them there. And I think Lysette was also a really good pickup despite getting dropped.
Yeah, that was weird how they dropped him for that patch. I didn't see any justification as to it. But other than maybe their results, and they felt like changing it up. But
I can't remember who. It might have been Brad Ebert on the radio was saying that there was a perception that Laddams was the best 22 and then he got injured. And then when Laddams got fit again, they just shuffled him back into the team where he was without necessarily considering where Lysette was. That was his description of what happened. It's weird though. And Ryder, I think, could be on the way out potentially.
Yeah, sounds like I've heard that a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't know where he'd go though, really.
GWS he's been linked to.
That's true, yeah. They could go for an upgrade at Rock.
Yeah. Negatives. Polak has become a very good player at North Melbourne, but I guess you can't really control
what happens.
That. I guess they got a good deal. And Wingard too. I think Wingard's going to become really good for Hawthorn, as much as I hate to say it.
He wasn't spectacular this year, though.
No, but I just think he will become a gun. When Hawthorn become a threat.
When he can be more of a passenger sort of thing. He's one of those guys.
Like a front runner.
Yeah. He's a guy, when he's on a good team, he looks good, but he doesn't really elevate a shit team, I feel.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's fair. Worst forward 50 efficiency this year. So I think at least they were late in the season. They were leading inside 50s and were worst for efficiency of scoring inside 50s or something like that. 12
Sounds
games.
like something Freo'd do.
Yeah. 12 games to Ollie Wines this year. That's a bit of a blow. Obviously out of their control, but nonetheless a bad...
wasn't out of his control, going for skiing or whatever it was, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, I suppose. I meant their control, but you're right. Can I just say as a side note, what is it with AFL legends being nuffies when it comes to trade suggestions? So last year we had Wayne, or whenever it was, Wayne Carey say, trade pick 1, which was eventually Sam Walsh, for Thomas Bugg, Dom Tyson, and some other Carlton spud.
Depth.
Yeah, some other Carlton player that's probably not even on the list anymore. A Melbourne player. And this year, Matthew Lloyd just came out and said, how's this for a trade? So he gives it a big, he gives it the big one as well. He's like, how's this for a trade? Orazio Fantasia for Ollie Wines. He's obviously an Essendon supporter. Anyway, I just thought
he's got his goggles on for that dream scenario.
I love how he gave it the build-up as well. So off-season strategy will be, they've got picks 9, 27 and 61. I would hold those picks and keep adding to the young nucleus they've got, because I think they're just on the start of something good with their next generation, potentially.
Even Wines is still pretty young.
Yeah.
Gray's not even that old, is he?
I don't actually
late
know.
20s?
No, I think he's late 20s. Yeah, he's not about to retire or anything. Yeah.
You can still get a good tilt out of those sort of guys with a fresh batch of kids.
Yeah, gross. As for targets, again, I'm just lazily listing the other 2 South Australian players, Scharenberg and Francis. Just because, again, I don't know if I back in their ability to recruit any Victorian
interstate
players. I'm not with where they're at. I gave them a D+ for this year. What do you think about that?
Fair.
Yeah, considering I think a C would be too
C
generous.
Would probably been finals.
Yeah, they needed to make finals this year. And I think they have the talent too. 2020?
Probably about this mark again.
Yeah.
In that 7 to 11 range.
Yeah, that's true. I guess it depends how aggressively they give games to the youth.
Yeah.
But their youth were all best, 2 of them were best 22 this year anyway. So
definitely.
All right, take us through Hawthorn, and then we'll have to set up for the live stream.
Well, I've pretty much got here Clarkson's system keeps them in the hunt. Like they only just missed out on the 8 again this year. But I'd say talent's probably an area where they're probably lacking a little, and they're elevated because of Clarkson's wizardry, if you will.
That's the second time you've called him wizard on this podcast.
He is a bloody wizard, mate.
Yeah, that's just a rumour.
Yeah.
Positives, negatives?
Positives for Hawthorn, they really... Warple, an obvious one. He didn't have a second-year slump. He had a second-year improvement, if anything, which is...
He was unbelievable.
Yeah, Warple's outstanding.
He's such a good player.
Getting a full year out of Jager. He didn't really have any health issues bow up this year. That's always a plus.
That's true.
For their projections and planning. Tim O'Brien had a good... I saw him have a good end of the game against West Coast. He looked great, so hopefully he can take that into next year and really hold down that spot now that Ruffy's been shown the door.
Mitch Lewis,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Another one who's had a good year.
Ricky Henderson.
I love Ricky Henderson.
Do you?
Yeah, mainly because of my dream team, but yeah. Oh. I'm biased if you do good on my dream team, I guess. But yeah, he had a great year. Nice kick. Efficient, classy dude.
They did also smash West Coast in Perth and beat Geelong, so they had some good performances this year. Yeah. What about negatives?
Not making the 8 with kind of those sort of performances. Like that's always a negative for a Clarkson coach team, not making finals, I feel.
So Clarkson said that it's not a big deal about finals as such. Maybe I'm paraphrasing maybe slightly wrongly, but he gave the impression, it's okay we didn't make the finals because it's about the big picture. So it's about developing that team. And Clarkson's, I think, earned enough credits where you can just be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, you just listen to him and go.
Yeah, when Brendan Bolton said it, it was like, yeah, all right.
You've been saying that since you got the job, but you settled down.
4 wins in 50 games, that's all right. I think, as I said, Wingard, I think it's going to be a really good play for him. Wait, no, we already moved on to negatives, haven't we? I guess the negative would be that he didn't...
It's our podcast, we can say what we want when we want.
I was just going to say, I don't think they would have probably wanted more games out of Wingard. I think he battled injury, didn't he? I don't know.
Something like that, yeah. I think he had some health-related issues.
Yeah. What do you think about... their off-season strategy?
I've got a weird curveball strategy here, actually, for Hawthorn.
What a surprise.
Where I could see them flipping some of their established sort of existing guys for picks almost, I'd say, to have more youth to build around guys like Warple, Mitchell Lewis, sort of add a more elite youth talent. Because if you're saying Clarkson's hinting at a long-term game, a couple of extra gun kids would probably help their cause long-term.
I agree, but that kind of goes against their strategy for the last few years, which has been just getting 23 to 25-year-old guy. Yeah. Mind you, their last premiership was built... sorry, not their last premiership. Their first premiership and their whole tilt was built on an amazing draft performance. So
rough-head buddy.
Yeah, exactly like that. So, mind you, the game's changed. You can trade in players more easily now.
Especially when you're Hawthorn every bloody year, they're the top contender to get whoever the top free agent is.
I can't believe they're not in the hunt apparently to get Jack Martin. I feel like he's a real Hawthorn style player.
He's one that Clarkson turned into a gem.
Imagine Jack Martin and Chad Wingard playing for Hawthorn with their style, Jarman Impey.
Yeah, he'd be a few X Factor guys to mix up Clarkson's solid system, a bit of X Factor flair with that.
I reckon they could turn Jack Martin into a superstar. So I would be having a massive go at him if I was Hawthorn. Yeah. If failing that, I would say retain the top 10 pick because they haven't taken one in so long. And I think they're probably borderline having to take one soon.
Yeah.
Surely.
Yeah, I think I was reading something that says they have to take one this year or next year due to the rule.
Which may be why they're not going for Barton, if that's true, because they've gone for free agents like Canelio.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm happy to see them use the pick, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
See them get a bit more established youth.
Probably need some tools, I'd say. But looking at their list profile, they've got some midfield talent.
Yeah. Sicily's another guy in that younger age profile, but you want guys to come up together.
We totally didn't mention Tom Mitchell broke his leg and missed the whole year. That's probably the biggest negative for Hawthorn this year. It might probably cost them finals because they were close enough to finals. So
they would have got in over Bombers, probably.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, true. Cool. How would you grade their season?
Probably a C.
Ooh, I would say D. They were top 4 last year.
That's true, but yeah.
Yeah, you just don't really rate them, do you?
Yeah, I didn't see them doing that last... I was almost going to get a tattoo on my ass because of them.
Yeah, true, yeah, because you love them.
Absolutely.
That's true. Where do you see them finishing in 2020?
Probably figure their way in that 7 or 11 again, like Port Adelaide.
Yeah. I'll be bold.
Maybe 6 to 11. They could.
Yeah.
I'd say their upside's more than Port Adelaide's, I feel, actually.
I think they'll play finals next year. That's my call. Cool. All right. Well, I think we come to an end at the podcast. I'm knackered. I'm not going to lie. I wonder if we have time for a quick Macca's run in between this and the live stream. But anyway, thank you very much for listening and watching the True Footy podcast 35, I think. Tell us what you think in the comments, whether we got it right or wrong. Don't be too mean. Pusher is very sensitive.
Roast me.
Yeah, they do. They do roast us for
roast
a
me.
bit, but that's all right. Cool. This has been fun. And we'll see you all very soon somewhere on the True Footy YouTube channel, guys. So see you later.